Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. In the last part we started our march wholeheartedly through the Battle Maison and the Battle Chatelaines, and now here's just a little bit of an update on where my move sets and held items are at this point in time. I have finally given Mortis the Eviolite, making her an absurdly good tank. It really took me majority of the LP after getting her to finally do that. Again, that is a benefit to me actively choosing a Duskull early on versus a Bayonet, but for the main campaign, a Shuppet into a Bayonet would have been the better choice. But what you do here really just depends on what Pokemon you've chosen for yourself and all that jazz. You can do a lot of potential team setups, but there's also a lot of potential for ways that your setups could potentially go wrong. So we've already done singles, doubles, and triples, so it's time for us to do the Battle Maison's versions of rotation battles. I went over these earlier in the LP when we first got introduced to the mechanic via the old lady in Mauville Hills, but given how rare they are, we might as well talk about them again. For this specific challenge set, you can only bring in 4 Pokemon. 3 of them are thrown out by default, and the 4th will act as an extra for the first one that actively gets knocked out. So as we covered when we first saw Rotation Battle, Rotation battles are another form of triple battle in a way, in that there are 6 Pokemon on screen at a time, but only one is actively attacking or taking damage, and it's the one in front. However, you can rotate to any of the other Pokemon to your left and right, and have them take that turn instead, immediately swapping whatever resistances or attacks can be used on the fly. So the game with rotation battles ultimately becomes... So the game with rotations effectively becomes rotating Pokemon in and out to either avoid the super devastating moves for a specific Pokemon in question, or trying to throw your best move at a Pokemon before they can swap out. With that said, because swapping is effectively a free action that doesn't take up a turn time, so to speak, how this goes will largely depend on what your team setup is and what you're up against. Worth noting, some abilities will only actively activate in rotation battles when the Pokemon themselves is up in the front. For instance, I think Intimidate will only work in that case. Same with things like Drought or Desolate Land and all that. Due to what you can do in this specific format, there are ways to make some really absurd tanks, especially using things like Leech Seed, Sunny Day, Roots, Synthesis, and all that, that can actively make for a very defensive playstyle, but it really depends on what you're up against once again. And again, because the trainers you fight here at the Maison are largely random, you can only predict and account for so much, especially when legendaries get thrown your way towards the end of a given challenge, especially in the 50-round challenge. Well, technically endless round challenge, but for what I'm doing, it's only 50 rounds. Once we finish this battle, we're going to cut right away to the 20th round here so we can take a look at our 4th Battle Chatelaine, and from there we'll just move right on into the finale of the 50-rounder, just so we get through this as painlessly as possible. It is kind of interesting that despite being their own mechanic set, rotations do feel like the direct middle point between singles and triples that's not actively doubles, if only because there's that many Pokemon on screen at a time, but the strategy is much more like a fast swapping singles in a lot of regards. And I do find that interesting. I think between this and triples, this is the more interesting mechanic set, but you can do more interesting team setup stuff with triples. But like I've already covered, at the end of the day, these weren't exactly the most grabbing formats, and again, they only lasted from Gen 5 into Gen 6, and outside of fan-in versions, aren't really represented anymore in the series. Here she comes, Battle Chatelaine Morgan! If you're free for a time, come on by. If you're bored for a while, stop on in. Battle till you burst, oh, won't you try? Want to battle? The Battle Maison replica's fine. What do you think, my lad? We just had that jingle written for our wee Battle Maison replica. Music can be a lovely distraction. Do you not find that yourself? Oh, me? I've not even introduced myself, have I? Well, don't bite my head off. I'm the eldest of the 4 Battle Chatelaine sisters. Do call me Morgan. We all thank you for coming to visit our cherished Battle Maison replica today. I'll do me best to entertain here at the birthplace of the Battle Maison. So, time for our 4th Chatelaine here, Morgan. out of her standard rotation battle setup here, for me she's throwing out her Swalot, Sawsbuck, and Mantine. The Swalot has stockpiled Toxic, Protect, and Earthquake with a Calm nature and maxed EVs in both defense stats. It's also notably holding the item Black Sludge, which, if held by a Poison-type Pokemon like Swalot, effectively acts like a Poison-type leftovers, recovering about a 16th of their health every turn. However, if should you steal it from them, or if it gets flung at you in some way and it's held by a non-Poison type, they instead take 1/8 of their HP every single turn, which can be rough. The Sawsbuck has Horn Leech, Double Edge, Mega Horn, and Leech Seed moveset-wise, has an Adamant nature, and maxed EVs in its attack and speed stats. It's also notably holding a Shell Bell, so any way it has to restore its HP, which is a good chunk of its moveset, is made even more effective. The Mantine, on the other hand, has Air Slash, Scald, Wide Guard, and Aqua Ring with a Timid nature and maxed EVs in its special attack and speed, and it's also holding a Wakon Berry, which reduces the damage from an incoming super effective electric-type attack, which, given that Mantine itself is, I believe, water-flying type, pretty good choice there. With that said, Mantine again, water-flying type, so weak to rock and electric. Meanwhile, Sawsbuck, which you haven't seen yet, is a normal grass type, so it's weak to fighting, flying, poison, bug, fire, and ice, but immune to ghost. Finally, we have her Klefki, which has Flash Cannon, Recycle, Draining Kiss, and Metal Sound with a modest nature, and maxed EVs in its special stats. It's also notably holding an Apricot Berry, so whenever it gets reduced to below 25% HP, it will raise its special defense by 1 stage, assuming it gets to survive that long. Klefki didn't get a good showing here, but they are a ridiculous steel fairy type, meaning they are weak to ground and fire and immune to poison and dragon. This means they're ultimately resistant to about half the types, including immunities, and while their stats are decent at best, when you partner that with either Magician or Prankster as abilities, Klefki can be a real good swinger in a battle to really change how things are going. Thankfully here, that didn't get to be the case. If anything, I think the worst case scenario here in this fight is the Swalot and Sawsbuck working together pretty well to just make a tank that can last a while, like I mentioned. Hell, let this Swalot that she's using be a very good example of what I brought up earlier in the LP, where while Gulpin and Swalot don't look like a lot, they can be surprisingly good tanks because this Swalot remains on the field for most of the remaining minute, maybe even a little bit past that. Considering I have a full team of 4 ready to just hammer down on it bit by bit, it really just depends on what's going on here. This is actively, I think, the real strength of rotation battles, where, because it's always a 1v1, the specialties of certain Pokemon that are much more notably useful in singles compared to doubles or triples can still come into play here a good bit, while still actively benefiting from a potential synergy with movesets thrown out alongside them. It's just that, again, they're kind of slow in comparison to doubles and even compared to triples in some cases, depending on how much you get stuck up on one Pokemon. I wouldn't mind rotation battles in specific, I think, getting revisited, especially in more modern context, given they're more willing to mess around with some mechanics here and again nowadays, especially given what Legend ZA has showcased here and again. Hell, just to date this specific video, the Pokemon Presents, where they showcased that weird little mobile puzzle game, Champions and more ZA footage, was today. And while I only saw the briefest bits of it, yeah, ZA looks pretty neat. I'll probably check that out whenever it comes out in, I think, like October or something like that. But if it's that month, Ghost of Yotei is getting my first attention there in comparison. The Swalot is out of here, and thus our first battle against Morgan is concluded. Thank you for the battle, love. Do you have a bit of fun yourself? Get out of the garden. I had no idea you were such a fine trainer. I should expect no less from Hoenn champion, I suppose. I've taken quite a shine to you, my fine lad. Sad to say, we've quite run out of time for our battle today. I wait with all my heart for the next time you come to challenge me. And, well, you're not going to be waiting too long, because we can do that immediately, because now I have access to the super rotation battles, which can really showcase just how specific setups can get to be as you go along. But again, we're going to jump cut specifically to the 50th round, just so I'm not here for... Given how many hours I was in the Battle Maison in specific, if I had actively recorded all this footage and used it, we would probably be shooting for real numbers in the 60s by now, part-wise, more than likely. Maybe late 50s? I don't want to think about that potential reality, though. My general sweet spot for, like, long LPs is between, like, 35 to 50 videos. I don't think I've had a single LP go above that thus far. So at this point, I am actively retooling my moveset a little bit again, as I want to give Dove a different move that she already learned, but I made her forget. In specific, I want to get her Moon Blast, because I want her to have a damaging Fairy-type move for what I know is upcoming, as Morgan's team in the 50-round battle has a critical weakness to Fairy-type. But also after this, I'm going to go to the Battle Maison lobby and buy some choice specs for Dove to use in the upcoming battle as well. I trade off with those and the Wise Glasses with her moving forward. To compare, the Wise Glasses are a flat 10% raise of her special attack across the board that can be used by all moves. But the choice specs raises her special attack by 1.5 times. The trade-off for that really absurd power boost, honestly, though, is that every time I throw her out, the first move I use with her is the only move she can use until I decide to swap her out. And given she's mostly going to be spamming Moonblast here, completely worth it. Round 8 against the Battle Chatelaines. It's time once again for Battle Chatelaine Morgan. I'm pronouncing the French right. I don't think I am to the best extent, but I didn't take French back in high school. If you're free for a time, come on by. If you're bored for a while, stop on in. Battle till you burst, oh won't you try? For a good battle, the Battle Maison replica's just fine. You're not bad, guest. You're really not. Sure to keep coming to see me like this. I'm the eldest of us 4 Battle Chatelaine sisters, Morgan, and I'm delighted and excited. I've been counting down the days till I might get to face you again like this, sure. Let's get started with the battle at once, and mind yourself that you don't lose. I tell you, I may not be a top-class trainer, but I put everything I am into treating you to the loveliest battle you've ever had. Morgan, I know your team. This is pretty top-class stuff. Also, I don't know why. Specifically, the fact they mark this as the Battle Maison replica just makes me mad. She's going, the Battle Maison replica! So being the round 50 battle as with her sister, she's going to actively throw non-banned legendaries at you. And she kind of parallels specifically a combination of Nita and Evelyn here, in that she uses an entire set of legendaries and an extra 4th one. In specific, she has all 3 Swords of Justice and a Latias. Her Cobalion has Metal Burst, Sacred Sword, Quick Attack, and Iron Hit with the Brave Nature, and maxed EVs in its HP and attack. It's also holding a Moringa Berry, which will raise the holder's special defense by 1 stage when hit by a special move. The Terrakion has Swords Dance, Sacred Sword, Earthquake, and Rock Slide, and a Jolly Nature, and maxed EVs in its attack and speed stats. It also notably is holding a Citrus Berry, so it has a really good HP recovery on standby. The Virizion, on the other hand, has Leaf Blade, Stone Edge, Sacred Sword, Protect, and a Jolly Nature, with maxed EVs in its attack and speed stats. It's notably holding a Koba Berry, which, if the holder is hit by a super effective flying type attack, cuts that attack's damage in half. Finally, the Latias has Calm Mind, Mist Ball, Dragon Pulse, and Recover with a Bold Nature and maxed EVs in HP and Defense. Between Calm Mind, Mist Ball, and Recover, the Latias is meant to try and outlast you largely, and hence why it has the Lax Incense, which, as we've already covered, makes any incoming moves have a 10% lower accuracy when targeting Latias in specific, meaning this can be probably the roughest member of her team to take care of, by and large. Something I could potentially recommend there is to maybe have Rain Dance and Thunder around just to have a guaranteed hit, or other moves that are guaranteed to hit, but it really depends on what you want to do and what's going on here. Now, the really annoying thing is we've covered 4 of the 5 categories here in the Battle Maison, and as they mentioned, there's only 4 Chatelaine sisters, because in multi-battles things get complicated. Just the outcome I would expect. Honestly, I'm not telling fibs. You really are the trainer I thought you were, aren't you now, pet? Might I ask something? Would you consider becoming the owner here? Me sisters and I have to be returning to our Battle Maison in Kalos someday. I suppose we'd feel safe trusting you with the Battle Maison name. There would also be the matter of our plans to build an even more impressive battle facility in the area. If we get our ducks in a row now, we may make oodles when we leave here. No more talk about it now, but do consider the idea, won't you, pet? Well then, I wait eagerly for our next battle and for your favorable reply. That's 4 Battle Chatelaine sisters fought twice across 2 categories of 4 formats for a total of 280 battles thus far. But we still have 70 to go. But not for nothing, I think multi-battles is probably the easiest format to do here at the Battle Maison, outside of maybe singles depending on what you're actively building your team into. As for why, it largely comes down to while you are limited on what team you can build yourself because you can only bring in 2 Pokemon for it, you're at least not alone, and while you're in the hands of the AI because of that, I feel like the game's a little kinder for you because of it. Also, like I mentioned, even though I don't show my swapping it every single time I do it, I do regularly swap Dove between the Wise Glasses and Choice Specs, really depending on my mood moving forward. And just to showcase, let's also save the game really quick, because we are now at a whopping, I think from memory of the footage, 80 hours and 31 minutes in game time. Now, admittedly, not all of that time was spent here at the Maison. As we've seen, I've gone to various places on top of that to either change up movesets or all that. And there were times between battles I would just leave the game idling when I went to go make dinner or eat, do anything like that, really. But most of the hours we've had since we've entered the Maison were spent in combat. Like I said, it takes a while. And I did better than I thought I would in performance generally, but I did still lose a couple times along the way, but thankfully most of the time they were relatively early, like just a dumb mistake in the first, 15 battles of either setup. So in multi-battles, you get to choose either connecting with a friend via the Wi-Fi connection, or one of 4 potential NPC allies. May, Wally, either team lead depending on your version, or Steven here. I'm going with Steven, mostly because the resistances that his Steel-type Pokemon have really make them key players in a lot of strategies I find here. As for the format itself, it's effectively just a restrained version of the multi-battles we did in Plot. Your ally, be they another player or an NPC, will throw out their 2 Pokemon, you'll throw out your 2, and you have to take out both of the enemy players. Certain strategies and moves that are applicable in doubles do come in real handy here, but if you're using the NPC players, they're a little less effective as you have to plan around the team you're partnering with rather than your own full-out team. And in that regard, doing multis with another player was probably overall the easiest version of this. As for the trainers you can partner up with and what Pokemon they have, starting off, there's Brendan or Maine, depending on which trainer you chose yourself to be at the very start of the game. They share a team overall. They have a Clay Doll with Light Screen, Reflect, Earth Power, and Psychic, Levitate for an ability, and are holding a Light Clay item, which, if they use, say, Light Screen, Reflect, or Aurora Veil, those moves last 8 turns instead of 5. And they also have an Exploud with Hyper Voice, Fire Blast, Blizzard, Shadow Ball, and Soundproof for an ability, and they're holding an Assault Vest, which raises the holder's special defense by 50%, but prevents them from using any status moves, by and large, hence why it's such an offensive moveset. You can bring in Wally, who brings in his Gallade, holding a Galadite, Steadfast for its ability, Psycho Cut, Close Combat, Leaf Blade, and Swords Dance, as well as his Magna Zone, Magna Pull for its ability, Thunder Wave, Thunder, Reflect, and Flash Cannon, and it's holding an Air Balloon, so he can escape Ground-type moves until it gets hit by a non-Ground-type move. Over in Omega Ruby, you can bring in Maxie, who has his camera up with Earth Power, Fire Blast, Flash Cannon, and Yawn. It's got Magma Armor for its ability. It's holding a camera up tight, so he can actively use his Mega Evolution, as well as a Crobat with Inner Focus for its ability, holding a Life Orb, Cross Poison, Brave Bird, Super Fang, and Roost. Archie here in Alpha Sapphire has the same Crobat, but he instead has a Sharpedo rather than a Camerupt. Rough Skin for its ability, Sharpedo Knight, Crunch, Aqua Jet, Poison Fang, and Waterfall. Meanwhile, Steven, the reason I chose him is that he has an Aerodactyl and his Metagross. His Metagross has Clear Body, a Metagrossite, Meteor Mash, Bullet Punch, Zen, Headbutt, and Hammer Arm. Meanwhile, the Aerodactyl has Rock Slide, Ice Fang, Thunder Fang, and Fire Fang with a Focus Sash. It's also got Rock Head for its ability. Here they come, Battle Chatelaines, Evelyn, and Donna! Thanks for coming to the Battle Maison. I'm Donna. I'm the second eldest of the 4 sisters who run this Battle Maison. I will praise your bravery, at least for attempting a multi-battle with me. And of course, I'm hardly alone. Oh, give me a break, Evelyn. It's your line next. Come on. I'm sorry, Donna. My name is Evelyn. I'm usually in charge of double battles. Well, I'm not all flash like my sister Donna when it comes to talking. Please, I'm sorry, but please start the battle already. So because it's multi-battles, you actively end up fighting 2 Battle Chatelaines at once. With that said, you actively cannot entirely predict what's going to be here. Here on the standard multi-battles, Evelyn is always one of the 2 you fight. With that said, she'll either pair up with Donna or Morgan, and they both randomly choose 2 Pokemon from their normal course teams. So for instance, Evelyn can use her Primeape, Persian, Pachirisu, or Lumineon. Donna can use her Piloswine, Dragalge, Whimsicott, Magneton, Girafarig, or Magcargo, and Morgan can use her Mantine, Sawsbuck, Swalot, or Klefki. You can sort of plan around that, but because the types are so varied across all 3 potential teams, you really just have to rely on Pokemon you know are good and can interplay well with the types of the multi-partner you choose. In that regard, again, bringing another player in for the multi-battle arena here in the Battle Maison is arguably the best choice because you can plan a little more around each other, have more strategies going on and all that. But in single player, you're really at the mercy of whatever you think you work best with in terms of a partner. Hence why I chose Steven, as Aerodactyl's a fast physical attacker that can cover some ground in the case, say, I have Blaze out in the field. And Metagross is so powerful on its own even without the Mega Evolution, and its resistances are so good that it's worth having as a defensive tank alongside whatever I throw it as well. I think by and large, across the challenges, I largely just had Blaze and Dove on my team, but I think I threw Boomba in every here and there again. I threw Kenny in again, and really just depended on what I wanted to do during like a brief session of playing, going through about 5 to 10 battles on like the 50 marathon and taking a break and all that. This does get into what I talk about with multi-battles being sort of the easiest set of battles to do here. As while the battle shadow lanes are a lot more random, getting through the rank and file fights up to them, I think, is a more straightforward process, given A, you're back down to the size of doubles, but also there's so much fewer strategic things you need to think about yourself, as your partner can cover up some of those pretty easily. Also, in my own personal recommendations, if you're going to choose an NPC multis partner, don't choose Brendan or May, depending on which trainer you chose at the start of the game, as while their Pokemon are honestly really good for this, the potential of a Mega Evolution and the stat boosts from that alone make the others much more worthwhile in my eyes. Especially for the defense boosts, potentially keeping them around a bit longer in the case there's something like, say, a Camerupt that has 4 times weaknesses and all that. I also think the multis Shadowline fights end up being some of the longest, only because the random nature of their team setups means you're probably going to be flailing a little more wildly than you are during the set encounters and the other categories. You're not too bad, that's for certain. To think that you would be able to break through our perfect combo. But my real stage is the triple battle, and Evelyn's specialty is double battle. If you took either of us on in our own specialties, we'd never lose to you. Bad news about that. Isn't that right, Evelyn? Well, I never said. I don't really think I'm all that good at double battles either. The reason we just lost is because I'm so slow. So I don't think these guys should expect much from me. I'd look right silly. Please, pick anything but double battle. Now then, I'll excuse myself. Thank you for the battle. Have more confidence in yourself. You're a pretty volatile opponent to fight, Evelyn, in general. Also worth noting, I've already mentioned, of course, that you can take a break from a Battle Maison challenge in the middle at any point in time and you'll resume where you left off. If you do that in the multis format specifically, you do get to reselect your NPC companion or get another partner along, I believe, via Wi-Fi connection in the case either the original one's not available or you're not too satisfied with which NPC you've been using up to that point. But again, that really depends on your mileage and what team you're using and all that. I stick with Steven by and large the entire 70-round bout. It is what it is. It's only natural that our champion-level combo would win. See ya, Steven. Alright, I'm gonna need you to come back, Steven, because time for 50 more battles. So the Battle Shadow Lane fight at the end of the 50th round works pretty similarly to the one at the end of the 20th round in the standard version of this format. Specifically, Nita is going to pair up with either Donna or Morgan, each of them using 2 Pokemon randomly selected from their Super Course teams. And because the Super teams are actively more themed around a specific legendary type, on top of the fact I didn't get Donna this time around, I honestly think this is the easier fight of the two, barring the potential stats of a legendary you can fight here at random. Hi, how are ya? It's Nita's turn. Welcome to the Battle Maison replica. I'll be doing multi-battles myself with my eldest sis Morgan today. Oh, but you two don't look all that fierce-strong anyway, do you now? I don't doubt I could take you both on alone and do a handy job of it too. Well, let's get cracking. Now, Nita, Did you honestly think I'd ever let you get away with saying such things? Our guests don't look strong, is it? You could beat them both, is it? You go throwing shapes like that, you had better be ready to leg it. And aren't I always warning you about the way you speak to our guests? Is your head cut, girl? Have you not a shred of scruple in your body? If you lose now, you'll never hear the end of it. So, because it's either of their super round teams, for me in specific, Morgan can either throw out any of the 3 Swords of Justice and her Latias, and Nita can throw out any of the 3 Forces of Nature, which honestly makes for a pretty frightening combo in general, as these are 2 very good legendary sets. I brought Dove into this fight pretty specifically, as I knew having Thunderbolt on her would go a long way to fight the Forces of Nature, and in the case I ended up getting Morgan specifically. Having the Fairy-type moves again for the Swords of Justice would go a long way. But even then, if I had gotten Donna here, facing any of the Reggies, her special attack would be useful against some of them. And also, while not the best fit, she would also do decently against the Kanto Bird trio. I did heavily debate to myself whether or not I wanted to bring Boomba or Blaze into this fight, as Boomba's high damage would do really good against the Reggies in the case they got thrown out. But I decided to use Blaze mostly for the Mega Evolution. With that said, I am throwing him out second in the case Dove faints, as I wanted to make sure I took care of the Forces of Nature as quickly as possible, because their flying typing and movesets meant that I was in for a rough time if Blaze got hit pretty much at all. In the right setup, with the right randomness, this is probably the easiest Battle Shadow Lane fight, if only because the themes of Pokemon that can be thrown out have such strong shared weaknesses or ideas you can get around that you can get through pretty smoothly, but it really depends, again, on luck, which is really what you need in general in the Battle Maison. A good strategy, learned set, and raised Pokemon can go a long way, but at the end of the day, compared to most other RPGs, again, Pokemon is very luck-based. You can get 40 rounds deep and just have a move miss or crit at the wrong time and completely ruin your day. In that regard, that's part of the reason why I don't really enjoy the Battle Tower, Battle Frontier adjacent stuff in post-games, as while there is some strategy to it, the higher luck factor than normal for RPG post-games just means that I don't find it to be as engaging and gripping as other things do. But with that, 350 battles, we're done! No, how could I? This is terrible altogether! How could you do this to me, you wee rotten trainers? Do you not even know what Morgan will do to me now? Nita? Oh, I'll do you, you little waster. First you mouth off to our guests with your boasting and insulting them so, and then you lose in battle despite it. Do you even take this work seriously? Could you ever face our dear Ma and Da, arrest him after such a shocking behavior? My dear guest, I am deeply sorry for this experience. I beg you'll somehow overlook it and visit our Battle Maison replica again. I must have a discussion with my wee sister. You'll excuse us. And we never saw Nita again. She was left in a ditch. Alive, but embarrassed. Oh, with that, we are now much further into this LP editing-wise than you'd think. This was the big hump I was scared about in this post-game editing-wise. And we now have all 5 monuments at the Battle Maison, meaning I never need to enter this place again, probably in my life. Well, I say that I'll probably showcase that it exists in X and Y, and then I will immediately leave it and just point you back to this LP. Hi, future people who are coming from the X and Y LP probably in like a decade. With that, there's only one thing I want to do left here at the Battle Maison. In specific, across me doing all this, Wally did spawn again here in the lobby, so I do want to briefly showcase his 4th round onward team. Albeit, the fight took long enough because it actively is a pretty rough fight, where I just end up speeding it up. Let's go over his team. His Rose Raid has Poison Point for its ability still, Shadow Ball, Leech Seed, Petal Blizzard, and Poison Jab, but now it has a Bright Powder, so any moves aimed at it have a much lower chance of hitting. His Talonflame has Gale Wings for its ability, is holding a Life Orb, and has Brave Bird, Flighter Blitz, Steel Wing, and Tailwind. That's an especially nasty Pokemon. His Azumarill has huge power for its ability, is holding an Assault Vest, Aqua Jet, Play Rough, Aqua Tail, and Iron Tail. His Magnezone still has Sturdy for its ability, is holding an Air Balloon like in the multi-battle format over in the Maison's main attraction. Thunder Wave, Discharge, Reflect, and Flash Cannon. His Gallade still has Steadfast, a Galadite, and he still has Psycho Cut, Close Combat, Leaf Blade, and Swords Dance. But now he has a Garchomp on his team. Rough Skin for its ability, Dragon Claw, Crunch, Earthquake, and Stone Edge. And it's holding a Rocky helmet, so any damage you do to it, you actively do effectively get a secondary rough skin proc going on, which is something I even mentioned as a potential thing you could do earlier in the LP, I believe. This fight, if I left it at full speed, we'd be here for almost 40 minutes in this video in total, and I just didn't want to do that. So speeding it up, I think, was the best option I really had. Notably, though, this is the fight that if you win, you have a 1% chance to actively win an ability capsule. And if you're trying to farm those out for better abilities for your Pokemon, well, you're going to be here for a while, even longer than I was already up to this point in the LP. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 40, we're leaving the Battle Resort behind to take a look at another mechanic set that has been around since we first entered Slateport, effectively, that I still haven't really taken a look at. See you guys then.